Hey, family, Reverend Russ, back again with another 5 minute pivot or less. Thanks again for your liking, your subscribing, your commenting, your rating. Please don't forget to do all those things. Rating, super important. It allows for this podcast to be seen by more people. And of course, you can just share it. You can just copy the URL, text it to a friend or a colleague. You saw inside the cover art that I was doing the timeout sign. And I was doing the timeout sign because recently, well, a little while ago, we finished up March Madness. And what was super cool about March Madness and even the NBA play in playoffs, which I really appreciate that the NBA has switched to that now too, because it makes the game more intense in my mind. But looking at March Madness, a lot of the time when the time is getting down, or even when things start to change in the game. For those that don't know the game of basketball, understand that sometimes there are intense moments. And in those intense moments, when the coach sees what's happening, the coach will call a timeout. The coach will say, hey, let's time out, let's regroup, let's have a conversation. And I thought about that during that season and even after, as we're dealing with some leadership stuff, that how often do we call a timeout? How often do we stop and try to regroup? How often do we stop and say, hey, this thing just changed, or this pivot, pun intended, just happened? How do I make sure that I'm ready, that my team is ready, that the environment is ready, that what God has called me to do next is ready? And so, my encouragement in this 5 minute pivot or less is three thoughts on what timeouts may look like. Understand that as you time out, you stop for a moment. I said already, to reflect, stop for a moment to see what just happened, how it impacted you. Maybe it's a conversation with a colleague. Maybe it's a conversation with your boss. Maybe it's a conversation with a parishioner. Maybe it's a conversation with your pastor, and it kind of was something that you wasn't that you weren't expecting. And if you just continue in that moment with that momentum, the momentum may not go where you want it to go. I'm gonna say it again. Not all momentum is good momentum. Not all things that are pushing you in the right way is good, pushing you the right way. I love to cycle. And I also know, though, that sometimes when I'm cycling downhill, while I like to go fast, going too fast may be a problem. So sometimes I have to slow down, hit the brakes a little bit so that I can make sure that I end up safely. Sometimes you need to call a timeout so that you can reflect. The other thing about doing a timeout is that a timeout allows you not just to reflect, but also to have vision for what's next. And looking at the March Madness example, when the coaches called the timeout, they were mapping out a play for what was to come. They were mapping out a play for what was to happen next. I did that actually at the beginning of the year. I said to myself, I had to do it in counsel with my pastor, and counsel with my therapist, and counsel with my wife. I really have a lot of things that I wanted to get on paper. And so I've been sharing with friends and with colleagues that what I did was I took a vision day. I took a day that I just went away to a hotel. I went away and I didn't have to go and check into a hotel. I went to a nice lobby of the hotel, didn't pay anything except for parking and a lunch that I had to buy for myself. But I took a vision day. I sat in that lobby for the whole day, and I wrote down vision. I wrote down what it was that I wanted to do. I took a time out. I put my phones on do not disturb. My wife understood where I was. I still picked my daughter up when it was time to pick her up, but I made sure that I took a time out so that I can have vision for what I believe God was doing next. And sometimes, beloved, we need to make sure that we take a time out, not just so that we can reflect, but also so that we can have vision. And the last thing that I wrote on here, you all know the books, Good to Great. You all know the habits, the 7 habits of highly effective people. Shout out to Stephen Covey and the family there. But they have one of the 7 habits is sharpen the saw. And when you take a time out, you allow yourself to sharpen the saw. You allow yourself not to go out cutting with a dull weapon. You allow yourself not to go out using an instrument that isn't at its peak. And can I tell you that you, as well as myself, we are instruments. We're instruments that God uses, and we need to be at our peak. And sometimes you need to call a time out so you can sharpen your saw. You need to call a time out so you can go on that run. Call a timeout so you can go on that jog. Call a timeout so you can go ride that bike. Call a timeout so you can go take a nap. Naps are still good for adults. Naps still work if you're able to do so, even if you have kids and you're able to take a nap with the kid. Take a nap with the child. The Lord will bless the nap with the child. But the point is that all of us need to take timeouts. And I think you need to take several timeouts. I don't know how many timeouts on average are taken during a normal game. I would love to see that stat. Maybe somebody knows. You put that in the comments. But I'm confident that teams take the timeouts. Teams take the timeouts because you can't consistently run at the same pace for the duration of the game and think that you're going to do really well. You really aren't going to do well. Now, life is not a game. I get it. But the point is that you need to take the time out so that you can reflect, so that you can seek vision and write out vision, and so that you can sharpen your saw. Again, Reverend Russ, super excited that you decided to join us on Ministry Pivot. Don't forget to go to ministrypivot.com. Don't forget to follow us on all our socials. Don't forget to like, to comment, to share, and to rate. Don't forget right now, just stop what you're doing. Go up there, rate this podcast so that others may be able to find it. And of course, don't forget that this is your season of opportunity. We just have to pivot forward. Speak with you soon, Reverend Russ. God bless.